I never imagined that the person who would try to destroy the happiest moments of my life would be someone I grew up with, someone I trusted with my deepest secrets, someone who shared my blood. This is a story about betrayal, manipulation, and ultimately, redemption. It's about how jealousy can transform the people we love into strangers, and how sometimes the only way to heal is to expose the truth, no matter how painful it might be. My name is Sophia, and I'm 32 years old. I live in a cozy suburb outside of Denver, Colorado, where the mountains kiss the sky and the air always smells faintly of pine. I work as a pediatric nurse at the local children's hospital, a job that fills my heart even on the hardest days. But this story isn't about my career or my picturesque hometown. It's about my cousin Isabella and how she nearly destroyed everything I held dear before I found the courage to fight back. Isabella and I were more than cousins growing up. We were best friends, confidants, partners in crime. Our mothers were sisters, and they raised us like twins, even though Isabella was 4 years older than me. Every summer, we'd spend weeks at our grandmother's lake house in Minnesota, swimming until our fingers pruned, catching fireflies in mason jars, and whispering our dreams to each other under the star-studded sky. She wanted to be a famous actress, and I wanted to help sick children. We promised we'd always support each other's dreams, no matter what. As we grew older, things began to shift subtly. Isabella struggled to find her footing after college, bouncing between retail jobs and failed auditions, while I steadily worked my way through nursing school. She'd make little comments about how lucky I was to have such a simple, straightforward path, but I always brushed them off. Family supports family, I told myself. She's just going through a rough patch. The day everything changed was a crisp October evening in 2022. My boyfriend of 3 years, Michael, had planned what I thought was just another date night at our favorite Italian restaurant, Bella Vista. The place held special meaning for us. It was where we'd had our first date, where we'd celebrated my graduation from nursing school, where we'd comforted each other after his father's cancer diagnosis. Little did I know, Michael had been planning this night for months. The restaurant was more crowded than usual, which should have been my first clue. As we settled into our corner booth, I noticed familiar faces at nearby tables. My parents were there, trying unsuccessfully to hide behind their menus. Michael's sister sat at the bar, pretending to scroll through her phone. Even my best friend from work, Jennifer, was there with her husband. My heart began to race as I realized something special was happening. Michael seemed nervous, fumbling with his napkin and clearing his throat repeatedly. We'd barely ordered our appetizers when he suddenly stood up, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath as he dropped to one knee beside our table. The small velvet box in his hand caught the candlelight, and I felt tears spring to my eyes before he even spoke. "Sophia," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "From the moment you spilled that entire tray of medications on me during my volunteer shift at the hospital, I knew you were going to change my life." The room chuckled softly at the memory. "You've shown me what it means to love selflessly, to find joy in the smallest moments, to build a life filled with laughter and purpose. You make me want to be a better man every single day. Will you marry me?" Through my tears, I managed to whisper yes before he slipped the ring onto my finger. The restaurant erupted in applause as our families rushed to embrace us. It was perfect, absolutely perfect, except for one glaring absence. Isabella wasn't there. I tried not to let it dampen my joy. Maybe she was sick, I reasoned. Maybe she got stuck at work. Maybe her car broke down. I sent her a text with a photo of my ring, expecting an immediate response filled with exclamation points and heart emojis. Instead, I got silence. The next morning, still floating on cloud 9, I called Isabella. She answered on the third ring, her voice flat and unfamiliar. "I saw your text," she said without preamble. "Congratulations, I suppose." "You suppose?" I laughed nervously. "Bella, where were you last night? Everyone was there. Mom said she texted you about it weeks ago." There was a long pause before she spoke again. "I don't think you should marry him, Sophia. You can do better, much better." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What are you talking about? You love Michael. You're always saying what a great guy he is." "Things change," she said coldly. "People change. Maybe I see things more clearly than you do." Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at my phone in disbelief, the engagement ring on my finger suddenly feeling heavy. Michael found me sitting on our bed, still clutching my phone, tears streaming down my face. Hey, what's wrong? He sat beside me, pulling me into his arms. Did something happen? I told him about Isabella's call, watching his face shift from concern to confusion to anger. That doesn't make any sense, he said. Just last month, she was telling me how happy she was that you found someone who treats you right. I know, I whispered. Something's wrong. This isn't like her. After work that day, I drove to Isabella's apartment in downtown Denver. She lived in a trendy building with exposed brick walls and industrial fixtures, a place she could barely afford but insisted on keeping because it was good for her image. I knocked on her door, my heart pounding. When she finally answered, I was struck by how different she looked. Her usually perfectly styled hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Sophia, she said, forcing a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. What a surprise. Come in, come in. Her apartment was messier than I'd ever seen it, with takeout containers on the coffee table and clothes draped over furniture. She bustled around, clearing a space on the couch for me to sit, chattering in a high-pitched voice I'd never heard her use before. I'm so sorry about this morning, she gushed, still in that strange, false tone. I was just having a moment, pre-coffee grumpiness. Of course I'm happy for you and Michael. Thrilled, actually. I studied her face, trying to read the truth behind her words. Bella, what's really going on? You can talk to me. We tell each other everything. For just a moment, her mask slipped. I saw something flash in her eyes, something that looked like envy, maybe even hatred. But then she laughed, loud and brittle. Everything's fine, Sophie. Better than fine. In fact, I insist on planning your engagement party. It'll be my gift to you. You don't have to do that, I started, but she cut me off. Nonsense, it's what family does. Plus, I have so many ideas already. Trust me, it'll be perfect. Against my better judgment, I agreed. As I left her apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a terrible mistake. But she was family. She was my Isabella. Surely I was just being paranoid. Over the next few weeks, Isabella threw herself into planning the engagement party with an intensity that was both impressive and slightly concerning. She texted me constantly with venue options, catering menus, and decoration ideas. She even created a Pinterest board titled Sophia's Dream Engagement Party, filled with images of elaborate floral arrangements and champagne towers. Don't you think this is a bit much for an engagement party? I asked during one of our planning sessions at a local coffee shop. We want to save some surprises for the actual wedding. Isabella waved dismissively. Nothing is too much for my baby cousin. Besides, you only get engaged once. Well, hopefully. She laughed, but there was an edge to it that made me uncomfortable. As the party planning progressed, I noticed Isabella becoming more controlling. She insisted on approving the guest list, vetoing several of my work friends because the venue has limited capacity. She chose the caterer without consulting me, claiming she'd gotten an amazing deal through a connection. Most surprisingly, she insisted on picking out my dress. I found the perfect one, she announced one Saturday, dragging me to a boutique in Cherry Creek. It's very you. The dress she pulled off the rack was beautiful, I had to admit. It was a flowing A-line in the softest sage green, with delicate beading along the neckline. But I'd always imagined wearing white or cream to my engagement party. Don't you think I should wear something more traditional? I asked, running my fingers over the silky fabric. Traditional is boring, Isabella said firmly. Besides, green brings out your eyes. Trust me, Sophie, have I ever steered you wrong? I thought about her recent behavior but pushed the doubts aside. This was Isabella, who had held my hair back through college hangovers, who had driven 3 hours to comfort me when my first real boyfriend broke my heart, who had celebrated with me when I got into nursing school. Surely she had my best interests at heart. The night of the engagement party arrived faster than expected. It was being held at a beautiful event space in the foothills, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains. As my mother helped me into the sage green dress, I had to admit Isabella had been right about one thing. It was stunning, and I did feel beautiful in it. You look radiant, sweetheart, my mother said, fastening a pearl necklace around my neck. Although I am surprised Isabella didn't go with white. It seems more appropriate for an engagement party. She said green was more me, I replied, trying to ignore the tiny voice in my head that was beginning to question everything. Michael picked us up in his freshly washed Subaru, looking handsome in his navy suit. When he saw me, his face lit up in that way that still made my heart skip after 3 years. He helped me into the car, careful not to wrinkle my dress, and whispered, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." Flatterer, I laughed. but I felt myself blushing like a teenager. Just speaking the truth, he said, kissing my hand before starting the car. Ready for our party? As ready as I'll ever be, I said, trying to quiet my nerves. The drive to the venue was filled with excited chatter from my mother about who was coming and how wonderful the space looked during the setup. But as we pulled into the parking lot, my stomach dropped. There, standing at the entrance in a stunning white ball gown that could have graced any wedding magazine cover, was Isabella. The dress was everything an engagement party dress shouldn't be. It had a full tulle skirt that seemed to float around her, a corseted bodice adorned with crystals, and a train that swept the ground as she moved. Her hair was styled in an elaborate updo with baby's breath woven through it. She looked like a bride, a very deliberate, very calculated bride. Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What the hell is she wearing? I don't know, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. My mother gasped from the back seat. Surely there must be some mistake. Perhaps she's going to another event afterward? But as we approached, it became clear this was no mistake. Isabella's face lit up with false innocence as she saw us. There's the couple of honor, she called out, loud enough for the arriving guests to hear. Don't you just love my dress? I saw it and simply couldn't resist. White is so classic, don't you think? Michael, ever the diplomat, stepped forward before I could speak. Isabella, he said, his voice carefully controlled. Could we speak with you privately for a moment? Whatever for? She asked, eyes wide. The guests are arriving. We can't keep them waiting. It's about your attire, he said quietly. Surely you understand that wearing a white ball gown to someone else's engagement party is inappropriate. Isabella's face transformed, the innocent mask slipping to reveal something uglier underneath. I just love the color white, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Is that a crime? Besides, Sophia looks lovely in her green dress. Very earthy. I found my voice then, though it shook. Isabella, I feel really uncomfortable with this. You're making me feel upstaged at my own engagement party. She looked at me with cold eyes and said something that made my blood run cold. Good. Now you know how I felt when your little proposal stunt scared away my boyfriend. He was about to propose to me, you know, but after seeing your perfect little scene, he got cold feet. What boyfriend? I asked, genuinely confused. You haven't mentioned dating anyone. She scoffed and turned on her heel, the train of her dress sweeping dramatically as she walked into the venue. I stood there, stunned, trying to process what had just happened. We can leave, Michael said quietly. Just say the word and we'll go. No, I said, squaring my shoulders. This is our party. I'm not letting her ruin it. But as the evening progressed, it became clear that Isabella had every intention of doing just that. She positioned herself at the entrance, greeting guests as if she were the hostess. She gave a lengthy toast that seemed to be more about her own accomplishments than our engagement. She even caught the attention of the photographer we'd hired, posing for so many shots that there were more photos of her than of Michael and me. The final straw came when I overheard her talking to a group of my coworkers. Yes, it's been so hard for poor Sophia, she was saying in a concerned tone. The pressure of keeping up with Michael's successful family. His mother is a federal judge, you know, and his father runs that big investment firm. Sometimes I worry she's in over her head. That's not true, Jennifer interjected. Bless her heart. Sophia is one of the most capable people I know, and Michael's family adores her. Isabella gave a pitying smile. Of course they do. Sophia's very good at making people like her. She's had to be, given our family's humble background. I'd heard enough. I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and downed it in one gulp, needing the liquid courage. Then I walked over to Isabella, my green dress swishing with each determined step. Isabella, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Thank you so much for planning this lovely party. Michael and I are so grateful. Everyone, please give Isabella a round of applause for all her hard work. The guests clapped politely, looking confused by the tension in my voice. Isabella's eyes narrowed, sensing a trap. Of course, I continued. I do want to clear up one tiny misunderstanding. Isabella mentioned being upset about her boyfriend not proposing, but I think there might be some confusion. You see, to my knowledge, Isabella hasn't been dating anyone seriously. But if I'm wrong, I'm sure we'd all love to meet this mystery man. Where is he tonight, Isabella? Her face went white, then red. He couldn't make it. He's traveling for business. What's his name? Michael asked, coming to stand beside me. We'd love to send him an invitation to the wedding. His name is David, she said quickly. David Anderson. He's in pharmaceutical sales. How wonderful, I said sweetly. And how long have you been dating this David Anderson? Isabella's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Around us, guests were beginning to whisper, sensing the drama unfolding. Finally, she lifted her chin defiantly. 6 months. We've been together 6 months, and he was going to propose until you ruined everything with your perfect little engagement. I see, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Well, I'm sorry to hear that our happiness somehow impacted your relationship. Perhaps David will come around. After all, true love always finds a way, doesn't it? The rest of the party passed in a blur. Isabella left shortly after our confrontation, claiming a headache. Without her dramatic presence, the atmosphere lightened considerably. Guests approached Michael and me with genuine congratulations, and we were finally able to enjoy our celebration. As we were leaving, my Aunt Maria, Isabella's mother, pulled me aside. I'm sorry about Isabella, she said quietly. She's been going through a difficult time. Lost another job last month, and I think seeing you so happy just triggered something in her. I wish she'd just talk to me, I said, feeling a wave of sadness wash over me. We used to tell each other everything. Jealousy does terrible things to people, Maria said, patting my hand. Give her time. She'll come around. But I wasn't so sure. The Isabella I'd grown up with, the one who'd been my best friend and confidant, seemed to have disappeared, replaced by this bitter stranger in a white ball gown. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Isabella. It was long, rambling, and full of apologies. She claimed she'd been drunk, that she hadn't meant any of it, that the stress of unemployment had made her act crazy. She begged for forgiveness and promised to make it up to me at the wedding. Against Michael's advice, I decided to give her another chance. Family is family, after all, and everyone deserves an opportunity to make things right. I texted back that I forgave her, but I also set clear boundaries. She could come to the wedding, but she needed to wear an appropriate dress and refrain from making any speeches or announcements. She agreed immediately, sending dozens of heart emojis and promising to be the best wedding guest ever. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. The alternative, that my cousin had become someone capable of deliberate cruelty, was too painful to accept. The months leading up to the wedding were some of the happiest of my life. Michael and I found the perfect venue, a historic mansion with gardens overlooking a lake. We tasted cakes until we were sick of sugar, listened to band after band until we found one that played our song just right, and slowly watched our dream day come together. Isabella kept her distance during most of the planning, which was both a relief and a sadness. She'd send occasional texts, normal ones about work or asking for recipe recommendations. It felt like maybe, just maybe, we were finding our way back to some version of normal. Michael took charge of most of the wedding planning, insisting that I focus on enjoying the process rather than stressing over details. He had an amazing eye for design and a gift for negotiation that got us upgrades we couldn't have afforded otherwise. Watching him pore over flower arrangements and seating charts with such dedication made me fall in love with him all over again. You know, most grooms don't care about centerpiece heights, I teased one evening as he showed me his spreadsheet comparing different options. Most grooms aren't marrying you, he replied, pulling me onto his lap. I want every single detail to be perfect because that's what you deserve. I don't need perfect, I said, kissing him softly. I just need you. Well, you're getting both, he said firmly. Perfect and me. Package deal. The big day arrived on a gorgeous June morning. The weather was ideal, warm but not hot, with a gentle breeze that carried the scent of roses from the garden. I woke up in the bridal suite surrounded by my bridesmaids, feeling like I was living in a dream. My mother arrived early to help me get ready, bringing with her the something old, my grandmother's pearl earrings that she'd worn at her own wedding 60 years ago. As she fastened them to my ears, I saw tears in her eyes. Grandma would be so proud, she whispered. You look radiant, my darling girl. The morning flew by in a whirlwind of hair, makeup, and champagne toasts. My bridesmaids, Jennifer, and my college roommate, Sarah, kept me laughing with stories and made sure I actually ate something despite my nervous stomach. Everything was going perfectly until Isabella arrived. To her credit, she was wearing an appropriate dress, a modest blush pink sheath that complemented the wedding colors. But something in her demeanor set off alarm bells. She seemed too calm, too composed, like she was planning something. You look beautiful, Sophie, she said, air-kissing my cheek to avoid smudging my makeup. Truly stunning. Michael's a lucky man. Thank you, I said carefully. And thank you for being here. It means a lot. Of course, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. What is family for? The ceremony itself was everything I dreamed of and more. Walking down the aisle on my father's arm, seeing Michael waiting for me at the altar with tears in his eyes, exchanging vows we'd written ourselves, it was all perfect. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife and Michael kissed me, I felt like my heart might burst with happiness. The reception began beautifully. The mansion's ballroom had been transformed into a floral wonderland, with twinkling lights and soft music creating the perfect ambiance. Michael and I shared our first dance to At Last by Etta James, and I forgot anyone else existed as we swayed together, whispering promises and inside jokes. After the formal dances and dinner service, it was time for toasts. Michael's best man, his brother James, gave a hilarious and heartfelt speech about how Michael had known I was the one from our very first date. My maid of honor, Sarah, had everyone in tears with her memories of our friendship and how she'd never seen me as happy as I was with Michael. Then Isabella stood up. My heart sank as she tapped her champagne glass with a spoon, drawing everyone's attention. This wasn't planned. She wasn't supposed to give a toast. I felt Michael's hand find mine under the table, squeezing reassuringly. I know I'm not part of the official wedding party, Isabella began, her voice carrying across the room. But as Sophia's cousin and oldest friend, I couldn't let this moment pass without saying something. I held my breath, praying she would keep it brief and appropriate. For a moment, it seemed like she would. She talked about our childhood, sharing a sweet story about how I'd saved up my allowance to buy her a necklace she'd admired. The guests smiled and laughed at the right moments, but then her tone shifted. You know, family is so important, she said, her hand moving to rest on her stomach. Which is why I wanted to share some special news with all of you on this special day. She paused dramatically, and I knew with sickening certainty what was coming. I'm pregnant. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. But Isabella wasn't done. She reached into her clutch and pulled out what was clearly an ultrasound image, holding it up for everyone to see. 3 months along, she announced. I just couldn't keep it to myself any longer. Isn't it wonderful? A new addition to our family. I sat frozen, unable to process what was happening. My wedding reception had just been hijacked by another one of Isabella's announcements. Around me, guests were clapping and congratulating her. The attention completely shifted away from the newlyweds to the expectant mother. Michael stood abruptly. Congratulations, Isabella, he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. What wonderful news to share tomorrow. But tonight is about Sophia and our marriage. I'm sure everyone will be excited to celebrate with you at a more appropriate time. His words were polite, but his tone made it clear the subject was closed. He raised his own glass. To my beautiful wife, he said, looking directly at me with so much love it made my eyes burn. The only announcement I care about tonight is that I'm the luckiest man alive to call you my wife. The guests redirected their attention back to us, clinking glasses and cheering. But the damage was done. Isabella had successfully inserted herself into our wedding story. Years from now, people would remember our reception as the one where the bride's cousin announced her pregnancy. But something else stuck with me beyond the frustration and hurt. As Isabella had raised her arms to show off the ultrasound, I'd noticed her reaching for the champagne bottle on the table. Throughout the rest of the reception, I watched her carefully, and what I saw confirmed my suspicions. Isabella was drinking. Not just sipping champagne for toasts, but actively drinking. I watched her finish 2 full glasses of wine during dinner and sneak champagne from other tables when she thought no one was looking. No pregnant woman would do that, especially not one who was making such a public display of her pregnancy. She was lying, again. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just attention-seeking or poor timing. This was calculated manipulation. A deliberate attempt to overshadow our wedding with a complete fabrication. And if she was willing to lie about something as significant as pregnancy, what else was she lying about? I made it through the rest of the reception on autopilot, smiling for photos, dancing with relatives, cutting the cake with Michael. But inside, I was seething. When Isabella approached me near the end of the night, swaying slightly from all the alcohol, I couldn't hold back. I saw you drinking, I said quietly, pulling her aside to a corner of the ballroom. Multiple glasses. No pregnant woman would do that. Her eyes widened in mock innocence. It was just sparkling cider, she slurred, I'm being very careful with the baby. Stop lying, I hissed. I watched you take champagne from the Petersons' table. You're not pregnant, Isabella. Just like you don't have a boyfriend named David. What is wrong with you? For a moment, her mask slipped entirely. The look of pure hatred on her face made me take a step back. You have everything, she snarled. Perfect job, perfect husband, perfect life. You even had the perfect wedding, until I fixed that. Fixed it? I repeated in disbelief. You tried to ruin my wedding with a fake pregnancy announcement? It's not fake, she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. I am pregnant. You're just jealous because now I have something you don't. I laughed bitterly. The only thing you have is a serious problem, Isabella. You need help. I don't need anything from you, she spat, then stumbled away, nearly tripping over her heels. Michael found me a few minutes later, still shaking with anger. Hey, he said softly, wrapping his arms around me. Don't let her ruin this for us. Please. She announced a fake pregnancy at our wedding, I said, my voice breaking. Who does that? Someone who's very sick, he said gently. But that's not our problem to solve tonight. Tonight, you're my wife, and nothing else matters. He was right, of course. I let him lead me back to the dance floor, where we swayed together as the band played The Way You Look Tonight. Around us, our real friends and family celebrated our love. Isabella had left at some point, probably too drunk to continue her charade. And as Michael spun me under the stars, I made a decision. I wouldn't let her poison another moment of our happiness. But the story was far from over. In the days following our wedding, as Michael and I honeymooned in Costa Rica, my phone began buzzing with messages from family members. Isabella had taken her pregnancy story to social media, posting the ultrasound image with captions about her blessing and miracle baby. She'd even started a baby registry, complete with high-end items from Pottery Barn Kids and Bye Bye Baby. My mother called while we were lounging on the beach. Sweetheart, I hate to bother you on your honeymoon, but people are asking about Isabella's pregnancy. Your Aunt Maria is planning a baby shower, and she wants to know if you'll help host it when you get back. Mom, I said, watching the waves crash against the shore, I don't think Isabella is really pregnant. There was a pause. What makes you say that? I told her about the drinking at the wedding, about the fake boyfriend, about the pattern of lies. My mother listened without interrupting, then sighed deeply. Oh, Sophia, this is worse than I thought. What should we do? Nothing for now, I decided. Let me handle it when we get home. Just don't commit to hosting any showers or buying any gifts. When we returned from Costa Rica, tanned and relaxed, despite the Isabella situation, things had escalated. She'd somehow convinced our extended family that she was carrying twins, updating her registry accordingly. She'd posted photos of herself with what was clearly a fake bump, her hand strategically placed to emphasize the roundness. The breaking point came when my grandmother called. At 92, Grandma Elena was the matriarch of our family, sharp as a tack despite her age. Sophia, darling, she said in her softly accented voice, I'm sending Isabella $5,000 for the baby's nursery. She says she's having twins, you know. Such a blessing. Grandma, no, I said urgently. Please don't send any money yet. Can you wait until after the babies are born? But she needs it now, Grandma protested. For the cribs and the car seats and all those things twins need. She showed me the ultrasound. 2 little hearts beating away. That's when I knew I had to act. Isabella wasn't just lying anymore. She was actively scamming our family. And using our grandmother, who lived on a fixed income, was unforgivable. I started my investigation simply, with a reverse image search of the ultrasound photo Isabella had posted. Within minutes, I found it, a stock photo from a medical website, complete with watermark that Isabella had tried to crop out. The image was from 2018 and had been used in dozens of articles about twin pregnancies. Next, I did some social media stalking of my own. Isabella had been tagged in photos from a wine tasting event 2 weeks after announcing her pregnancy. In every picture, she held a full glass of red wine. Her supposed baby bump varied dramatically in size from photo to photo, sometimes appearing larger at 2 months than at 4 months. The most damning evidence came from her own Instagram stories. She'd posted a video from a girls' night out, forgetting that her fake bump was visible as she danced on a table, the padding shifting obviously under her tight dress. When she bent over, you could actually see the edge of what looked like a pillow. I compiled everything into a folder on my laptop, screenshots, dates, inconsistencies. Michael watched from the doorway of our home office, concern etched on his face. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked. Once you expose her, there's no going back. It'll destroy your relationship permanently. She already destroyed it, I said, adding another screenshot to my collection. The moment she decided to fake a pregnancy at our wedding. I'm just documenting the truth. What are you going to do with all this? I leaned back in my chair, exhausted. I don't know yet. Part of me hopes she'll come clean on her own. But if Grandma sends that money, we could cover it, Michael suggested. Tell your grandmother we're gifting the nursery items instead. That's sweet, I said, kissing his hand. But this isn't about money. It's about Isabella needing serious help and our family enabling her instead of getting her that help. The next Sunday, our entire extended family gathered for our monthly dinner at my parents' house. Isabella arrived late, wearing a flowing dress that emphasized her bump. She made a big show of needing help to sit down, claiming the twins were making her uncomfortable. I can't believe I'm only at 5 months, she complained loudly. I'm already so huge. The doctor says it's normal with twins, but still. I watched my relatives fuss over her, bringing her pillows, filling her plate, treating her like a delicate flower. The whole time, Isabella basked in the attention, one hand permanently attached to her fake belly. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Isabella, I said during a lull in conversation, I've been meaning to ask, which hospital are you delivering at? I'd love to send flowers when the twins arrive. She blinked rapidly. Oh, Presbyterian, the one downtown? Great, I continued. And what are the twins' names? Have you decided yet? We're still choosing, she said vaguely. So many options with 2 babies. I pressed. Is David involved in the naming process? I'd still love to meet him. Maybe he could come to next month's dinner. Isabella's face flushed. He's very busy with work, always traveling. Pharmaceutical sales, right? I said innocently. Which company did you say he works for? I don't remember the exact name, she stammered. It's one of those big corporations with initials. My cousin Marco, who actually worked in pharmaceutical sales, perked up. Oh yeah? I might know him. The industry's pretty small. What's his last name again? Anderson, Isabella said quickly. David Anderson. Marco pulled out his phone. Let me check LinkedIn. Always good to network. He typed for a moment, then frowned. No David Anderson in pharmaceutical sales in Colorado. Maybe he's based elsewhere? Must be, Isabella said, her voice rising. Can we talk about something else? All these questions are stressing me out, and stress isn't good for the babies. But I wasn't done. I'd prepared for this moment. Of course, we should reduce your stress. Hey, remember that ultrasound photo you showed everyone? It's so clear. Which imaging center did you go to? My friend is pregnant and looking for a good place. I don't remember, Isabella said defensively. Why does it matter? It doesn't, I said calmly. It's just that the image looked so familiar, almost like I'd seen it before. Oh, wait, I remember where. I pulled out my phone and showed everyone the medical website. Right here, this exact ultrasound image from 2018. Isn't that strange? The room went silent. Isabella's face drained of color as family members leaned in to look at my phone, then at her, then back at the phone. The evidence was undeniable. Even the position of the fetuses was identical. That must be a mistake, Isabella stuttered. Lots of ultrasounds look similar. Do they? I asked. I swiped to the next image on my phone. What about this one from your wine tasting event 2 weeks after you announced? Pretty full glass for someone who's pregnant with twins. It was grape juice, she insisted weakly. In a wine glass? At a wine tasting? I swiped again. And this video from your Instagram story, where your bump shifts when you bend over? That's not how pregnant bellies work, Isabella. My Aunt Maria stood up slowly, her face a mask of horror and disappointment. Isabella, she said quietly, please tell me Sophia is wrong. Please tell me you haven't been lying about being pregnant with twins. Isabella looked around the room at the faces of our family. People who'd supported her, believed her, offered to help with her fictional babies. For a moment, I thought she might continue the lie, but then her shoulders slumped and the fight went out of her. I'm not pregnant, she whispered. The room erupted. My grandmother, bless her heart, looked more confused than angry. But the ultrasound, the registry, the bump? All fake, Isabella admitted, tears streaming down her face. The ultrasound was from Google. The registry was just wishful thinking. And this, she reached under her dress and pulled out what appeared to be a specially designed pregnancy padding. Isn't a baby, it's just foam. Why? My mother asked, her voice breaking. Why would you do this? Isabella turned to me then, her eyes blazing through her tears. Ask her, she spat. Ask perfect Sophia why I did it. Ask her what it's like to watch your younger cousin get everything, the career, the husband, the dream wedding, while you're stuck in retail hell, single and pathetic. Ask her what it's like to be the family failure while she's the golden child. So you faked a pregnancy? Michael interjected. At our wedding? And scammed your family? I didn't scam anyone, Isabella protested. I didn't take any money. Only because we exposed you first, I said quietly. Grandma was about to send you $5,000. How many others were you planning to accept gifts from? Isabella had no answer for that. The room was thick with tension and disappointment. Finally, my Uncle Roberto, a psychiatrist, spoke up. Isabella, you need help. Professional help. This isn't normal behavior, and it's escalating. I don't need help, Isabella said defiantly. I need a family that doesn't make me feel worthless by comparison. No one makes you feel worthless but yourself, my Aunt Maria said firmly. We've supported you through everything, every job loss, every failed relationship, every crisis. But this, faking a pregnancy, lying to your grandmother, trying to ruin Sophia's wedding, this is beyond acceptable. The family dinner ended in disaster. Isabella stormed out, leaving her fake pregnancy padding on the dining room floor like a discarded costume. Various relatives left in states of shock, anger, or disappointment. My grandmother needed to lie down, overwhelmed by the deception. Michael and I stayed to help clean up, working alongside my parents in heavy silence. Finally, my father spoke. You did the right thing, Sophia. It was hard, but it was right. It doesn't feel right, I admitted, wrapping leftover food. It feels awful. The truth often does, my mother said softly. But imagine if she'd kept going. Imagine if people had given her money, thrown her showers, bought gifts for babies that didn't exist. The hurt would have been so much worse. She was right, of course. But that didn't make it easier. That night, as Michael held me in our bed, I cried for the cousin I'd lost. Not the Isabella who'd faked a pregnancy and tried to sabotage my wedding, but the one who'd made friendship bracelets with me at summer camp, who'd taught me how to apply mascara, who'd been my first call when I needed someone to understand. People change, Michael said gently, stroking my hair. Sometimes trauma or jealousy or mental illness changes them in ways we can't fix. It's not your fault. I know, I whispered. But I keep thinking, what if I'd been more sensitive? What if I'd noticed she was struggling earlier? What if I'd included her more in my life? You can't what if yourself into accepting responsibility for her choices, he said firmly. She's an adult who made deliberate decisions to lie and manipulate. That's on her, not you. In the days that followed, the family grapevine worked overtime. Isabella's fake pregnancy became the scandal everyone whispered about. I started receiving messages from relatives I barely knew, some supportive, others critical of how I'd handled the situation. A few thought I should have confronted her privately instead of exposing her at family dinner, but then details began emerging that vindicated my approach. My cousin Luis revealed that Isabella had asked him for a $2,000 loan for prenatal care. My great-aunt Rosa mentioned that Isabella had been pricing out a baby shower venue and asked her to put down a deposit. The web of lies was more extensive than even I had realized. Isabella herself went radio silent for 2 weeks. She blocked me on all social media, ignored calls from her mother, and apparently took time off from her job. Part of me worried about her mental state, but Michael reminded me that I couldn't save someone who didn't want to be saved. Then, one random Tuesday evening, she showed up at our door. I was cooking dinner when the doorbell rang. Michael was still at work, so I wiped my hands on a dish towel and went to answer it. Isabella stood on our porch, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her face was makeup-free, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked exhausted. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. Every instinct told me to say no, to protect my peace and my home from her chaos. But this was still Isabella, the girl who'd held my hand during my first scary movie, who'd split her Halloween candy with me every year. I stepped aside and let her enter. We sat at my kitchen table, the smell of garlic and herbs filling the air from my abandoned cooking. Isabella fidgeted with her hands, seemingly unable to meet my eyes. "I've been seeing a therapist," she finally said. "My mom made it a condition of me staying in her house. Dr. Klein, she's helped me understand some things." I waited, not trusting myself to speak. "I've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder," she continued, "and depression, and something called histrionic personality disorder. It's a lot of big words that basically mean my brain doesn't process emotions and relationships the way it should. I see, I said carefully. That's not an excuse, Isabella added quickly. Dr. Klein made that very clear. Mental illness might explain my behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. I still made choices. Terrible choices. Yes, I agreed. You did. Isabella flinched but continued. I've been jealous of you since we were kids. Not your fault, she added as I opened my mouth to protest. You never did anything wrong. You were just better. Better grades, better at making friends, better at life. And instead of working on myself, I turned that jealousy into something toxic. The fake pregnancy, I started, was insane, she finished. I know. I think I knew it even as I was doing it. But I was so desperate to have something you didn't have, to be special for once, that I convinced myself it was harmless, just a little attention-seeking. You tried to scam our grandmother, I reminded her. I know, she whispered. That's what finally made me realize how sick I'd become. When Grandma called me after the dinner, crying, asking why I'd lied to her. God, Sophia, I wanted to die. I've never felt so ashamed. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Isabella reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of letters. I wrote apologies to everyone. Dr. Klein said I didn't have to send them, that they were more for my own processing, but I want to. I need to. And I wanted you to read yours first. I took the letter with trembling hands. It was 3 pages, front and back, filled with Isabella's familiar handwriting. I didn't read it then, that would come later, in private. But the gesture meant something. I also wanted to tell you that I'm moving, Isabella said. My dad's cousin owns a restaurant in Portland and offered me a job. It's nothing fancy, just hosting and eventually maybe serving, but it's a fresh start. Dr. Klein thinks distance might help me build my own identity instead of constantly comparing myself to you. When? I asked. Next month. I know you probably never want to see me again, but I couldn't leave without trying to apologize. And to thank you. Thank me? I repeated in disbelief. For what? For exposing me, she said simply. It was humiliating and painful, and I hated you for it. But if you hadn't, I might have kept escalating. Dr. Klein thinks I was heading for a complete breakdown. You forced me to face reality, and as much as it hurt, I needed that. I studied her face, trying to gauge her sincerity. This felt different from her previous apologies, less performative, more genuine. But I'd been fooled before. I appreciate you coming here, I said finally, and I'm glad you're getting help. But Isabella, I need you to understand something. You didn't just lie or seek attention. You tried to destroy the happiest moments of my life. You wore a wedding dress to my engagement party. You announced a fake pregnancy at my wedding. You turned family members against me. That's not something I can just forgive and forget. I know, she said quietly. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand how sick my behavior was, and I'm working on getting better. Not for you, not for the family, but for myself. She stood to leave, and I walked her to the door. On the porch, she turned back one more time. For what it's worth, Michael really is perfect for you, and you looked beautiful at your wedding. Even with me trying to ruin it, you glowed. I'm sorry I couldn't just be happy for you. Maybe someday you will be, I said, when you're happy with yourself first. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and walked to her car. I watched her drive away, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. The Isabella I'd grown up with was gone, but maybe this new version, who took accountability and sought help, could eventually become someone worth knowing again. When Michael came home, I told him about the visit. He listened carefully, his lawyer's mind analyzing every detail. Do you believe her? He asked when I finished. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to. The diagnosis makes sense, and she seemed genuine, but she's fooled me before. What does your gut say? I thought carefully. My gut says she's telling the truth about getting help. Whether she'll stick with it, whether she'll really change, that's another question. But I think the rock bottom of being exposed at family dinner actually did wake her up. So what do you want to do? Nothing, I decided. Let her move to Portland. Let her work on herself. Maybe in a few years we can try to build something new. But right now, I need to protect my own peace. Michael agreed, and we returned to our normal lives. The family drama gradually died down as new scandals and celebrations took center stage. Isabella's name became something of a cautionary tale at gatherings, whispered about when someone acted out of line. Don't pull an Isabella became family shorthand for attention-seeking behavior. 6 months passed. Isabella had moved to Portland as planned, and from what her mother told mine, she was doing well. She'd kept her restaurant job, was still seeing a therapist, and had even started dating someone, though she was keeping it low-key. She sent me a Christmas card with a simple, thinking of you message, nothing dramatic or overreaching. Then, on a random Wednesday in February, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Sophia, it's Dr. Klein, Isabella's therapist. I'm calling because Isabella signed a release allowing me to speak with you, and there's something I think you should know. My heart raced. Is she okay? She's fine, Dr. Klein assured me, but she's in the hospital. She had a severe panic attack at work and called 911 thinking it was a heart attack. While she was being evaluated, she asked me to call you. Why? I asked, genuinely confused. Because during her panic attack, she kept saying she needed to warn you about something. She was quite insistent, even in her distressed state. She wanted me to tell you that she overheard something at a family event before she moved. Something about your husband's business that concerned her. She's been struggling with whether to tell you, and I think the anxiety of keeping it inside triggered this episode. What about Michael's business? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. Michael had recently started his own law firm, and while it was doing well, any threat to it would be devastating. I don't have those details, Dr. Klein said. Isabella was too distressed to explain clearly, but she wanted you to know she's at Presbyterian Hospital, room 302, if you want to visit. No pressure, she emphasized that repeatedly. She just felt you should have the option. I thanked Dr. Klein and hung up, my mind spinning. This could be another manipulation, another ploy for attention. But what if it wasn't? What if Isabella actually knew something that could affect Michael's business? I called Michael and explained the situation. He was equally skeptical, but agreed we should at least investigate. I'll meet you at the hospital, he said. Better to know than wonder. An hour later, we walked into room 302 to find Isabella hooked up to monitors, looking pale and fragile. When she saw us, tears immediately sprang to her eyes. You came, she whispered. Dr. Klein said you had information about Michael's business, I said, keeping my voice neutral. What's going on, Isabella? She took a shaky breath. At Grandma's birthday party last month, the one you missed because of your trip, I overheard Uncle Roberto talking to someone on the phone. He didn't know I was in the hallway. He was talking about Michael's new client, the Morrison Corporation. He said something about how Michael didn't know Morrison was being investigated for embezzlement, and how Roberto's friend at the DA's office said anyone associated with them was going to get pulled into the scandal. Michael's face went white. Morrison Corporation was his biggest client, accounting for almost 40% of his firm's revenue. If they were under investigation and he was unknowingly helping them, it could destroy his reputation and his business. Why didn't Roberto tell me directly? Michael asked. I heard him say he was going to, Isabella said. But then his friend told him to stay quiet, that they couldn't reveal an active investigation. He was drunk, Michael. I don't think he would have said anything if he wasn't. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. You're just starting out, and if you get caught up in their crimes... When exactly was this? Michael asked urgently. January 15th, Isabella said. Grandma's 83rd birthday. I wrote it down because I didn't know what to do. I wanted to warn you, but I was scared you'd think I was starting drama again. But the more I thought about it, the more anxious I got, and today I just... broke. Michael was already on his phone, texting his assistant. We need to verify this immediately, he said. If it's true, I need to drop Morrison as a client before any charges are filed. While Michael made calls in the hallway, I sat with Isabella. She looked so different from the woman who'd worn a wedding dress to my engagement party. Vulnerable, honest, scared. Thank you for telling us, I said quietly, even though it was hard. I know you don't trust me, she said, and I don't blame you, but I couldn't let you guys get hurt because of my fear of not being believed. Dr. Klein says that's progress, putting others' well-being ahead of my own ego. It is progress, I agreed. Michael returned, his face grim. My contact at the courthouse confirmed it. Morrison's CEO was served with papers this morning. If I hadn't found out now, my firm would have been named in the investigation by the end of the week. Oh my God, I breathed. Isabella, Michael said, sitting on the edge of her hospital bed. You just saved my career. How can we thank you? You don't need to thank me, she said, fresh tears flowing. It doesn't make up for what I did. But maybe it's a start at being the family member you both deserve. We stayed with Isabella until the doctor discharged her, making sure she had a ride home and her anxiety medication. As we were leaving, she caught my hand. I know we're not there yet, she said softly. Maybe we never will be. But I want you to know I'm trying. Really trying. Not for attention or forgiveness, just to be better. I know, I said, squeezing her hand gently. Keep going to therapy. Keep working on yourself. Maybe someday we can find our way back to something real. As Michael and I drove home, processing the bizarre turn of events, I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. Isabella had fought through her own anxiety and fear of rejection to protect us. That meant something. She could have stayed quiet, Michael said, echoing my thoughts. Let me crash and burn and maybe felt vindicated, but she didn't. No, I agreed, she didn't. Over the next few months, we established a cautious correspondence with Isabella. Nothing dramatic or overly familiar, just occasional texts checking in. She shared her therapy milestones. I shared updates about work. When she got promoted to server at the restaurant, we sent a congratulations card. When Michael successfully pivoted his firm away from Morrison Corporation before the scandal broke, she sent a plant for his office. Slowly, carefully, we began building something new. Not the relationship we'd had as children that was gone forever, but something more honest, more balanced, with boundaries and respect. A year after the hospital incident, Isabella invited us to visit her in Portland. She wanted to introduce us to her boyfriend, Thomas, and show us the life she'd built. After much discussion, we agreed to go. Portland Isabella was a revelation. Her apartment was small but tidy, decorated with plants and photographs from her new life. Thomas turned out to be a quiet, steady presence, a chef at the restaurant where Isabella worked. He clearly adored her, but also held her accountable, gently redirecting her when she slipped into old patterns. He knows everything, Isabella told me while the men were cooking dinner. About the fake pregnancy, the wedding dress, all of it. I told him on our third date because Dr. Klein said I needed to practice radical honesty. And he stayed? I asked, impressed. He said everyone has a past, Isabella smiled. What matters is who we're becoming. The visit went well. No drama, no attention-seeking, just 4 adults sharing a meal and conversation. Isabella showed us around her neighborhood, proud of the life she'd built independent of our family's expectations and comparisons. When we left, the goodbye hug felt genuine for the first time in years. On the flight home, I leaned against Michael's shoulder, thinking about the long, strange journey that had brought us here. From the cousin who'd tried to destroy my wedding to the woman who'd saved my husband's career. From fake pregnancies to real personal growth. Do you think people can really change? I asked Michael. I think they can if they want it badly enough, he replied. And if they're willing to do the work, Isabella's doing the work. Yeah, I agreed. She is. 6 months later, on my 33rd birthday, I received a package from Isabella. Inside was a photo album she'd made, filled with pictures from our childhood. But instead of idealizing the past or using it to manipulate, she'd included honest captions. Under a photo of us at age 10, she'd written, "Even then, I was jealous of your confidence, working on finding my own now." The last page held a recent photo of all of us, Michael, me, Isabella, and Thomas, from our Portland visit. Her caption read, "New beginnings, not perfect, but real." I called her that night to thank her. We talked for an hour, not about the past or our complicated history, but about normal things. Her job, my work at the hospital, Michael's cases, Thomas's new menu ideas. It felt easy, natural even. "I love you, Sophia," she said as we were ending the call. Not in that desperate, competitive way I used to. Just love you. My cousin. My family. "I love you too, Isabella," I said, meaning it for the first time in years. Healing isn't linear. There are still moments when I remember the pain she caused, the humiliation of her behavior at my wedding, the stress of her lies. But there are also moments when I see how hard she's worked to become better, how she faced her mental illness head-on instead of letting it define her. Last month, Isabella called with news. She and Thomas were engaged, a simple proposal during a hike, no grand gestures or attempts to compete with my story. She asked hesitantly if I thought our family would come to the wedding. "I think some will," I told her honestly. "Mom and Dad definitely will. Others might need more time." "That's fair," she said. "I know I hurt a lot of people, but I want to do this right, Sophia. A small, honest celebration. No drama, no lies, just love." "Then that's what you'll have," I promised. And I believed her. Because the Isabella I was talking to wasn't the same person who wore a wedding dress to my engagement party, or faked a pregnancy for attention. This was someone who'd faced her demons, done the hard work, and come out the other side. People always ask me how I forgave her after everything she did. The truth is, forgiveness wasn't a moment, but a process. Every therapy session she attended, every honest conversation we had, every time she chose growth over drama, it all added up. Not to erasing the past, but to building a future where we could coexist as family. Michael sometimes jokes that our story could be a movie, the cousin who crashed my wedding but saved my business. We laugh, but there's truth in the complexity of it. Life isn't black and white. People aren't all good or all bad. Sometimes the person who hurts you the most can also become someone who helps you when you least expect it. Isabella's wedding is in 3 months. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, not maid of honor, just a bridesmaid. I want you there, she said, but I don't want to put pressure on our relationship. We're still rebuilding. I said yes, because despite everything, she's family. And sometimes family means accepting that people are flawed, that they can cause tremendous pain, but that with effort and professional help and genuine desire to change, they can also heal and grow. Our story isn't a fairy tale. There's no magical moment where everything was suddenly okay. Instead, there were hundreds of small moments, therapy sessions, honest conversations, setbacks, and progress that slowly rebuilt what was broken. It took Isabella hitting rock bottom at that family dinner, being exposed for her lies before she could begin climbing back up. And it took me learning to set boundaries while still leaving room for the possibility of change. Today, as I write this, Isabella is doing well. She's been stable for over 2 years, continues therapy, takes her medication, and has built a life she's proud of. We talk once a week, sometimes more. Not about the past, but about the present and future. About Thomas's restaurant opening, about the pediatric ward's new equipment, about our grandmother's health, about normal family things. The scars remain. They always will. But scars are proof of healing, evidence that what was once an open wound has closed. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's what real forgiveness looks like. Not forgetting the pain, but choosing to see beyond it to the person someone is becoming. Would I change what happened? Of course. I wish Isabella had never felt the need to compete with me, had never let jealousy poison her mind, had never tried to sabotage my happiness. But without those terrible moments, would she have gotten the help she needed? Would she have faced her mental illness? Would she have built the authentic life she has now? I'll never know. All I know is that we're here now. 2 cousins who survived a storm of lies and manipulation and fake pregnancies and wedding dress disasters, and somehow found our way back to something resembling family. Not the same as before, but maybe stronger for having been tested. My name is Sophia, and this is my story of betrayal and redemption, of family bonds that bent but didn't break, of learning that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is expose the truth, even when it hurts. And sometimes, just sometimes, that truth can set everyone free to become who they were meant to be. The wedding dress from my engagement party hangs in Isabella's closet now. She bought it from the thrift store I donated it to, not to wear, but as a reminder. When I look at it, she told me once, I remember who I don't want to be anymore. And perhaps that's the most honest thing she's ever said. Family is complicated. Love is messy. Forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. But when someone shows you they're committed to change, when they do the work day after day, year after year, sometimes the best gift you can give them, and yourself, is the chance to prove that people can grow. Isabella proved it, and in learning to trust her again, maybe I grew too. This is our story. Imperfect, painful, but ultimately hopeful. Because if a woman who faked a pregnancy at my wedding can become someone I trust to save my husband's career, then maybe anything is possible. Maybe that's the real miracle. Not that people are perfect, but that they can change. And maybe that's enough.